I just put together the play on words of that.
You're a dummy. Hey guys, welcome to episode 106 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name, of course, is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good, dude. Coming down from a cold, but besides that, I'm doing all right. What about you?
Tired. It's been kind of a long day. I was babysitting kids at my wife's family reunion today, and it's been kind of a long day already.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun. I just came over from work. It was a busy day for us. I work in retail, and it's like the Saturday before back to school. So
you were kind of doing the same thing I was doing.
I was babysitting in a way as well. So yeah, well, luckily we're doing this now, and we're past all that shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we start off each episode by just kind of checking in with each other. Tyler and I don't get to have the nerdy conversations we used to. And so we kind of use this first segment, as kind of an excuse to just check in with each other, see what we're up to. We call it what we're into. So Tyler, what are you into this week?
This week, binged the 2 seasons of Rick and Morty that are out
yeah?
there.
I've wanted to get into it, but I just can't.
I honestly, I've heard people talk about Rick and Morty, and I didn't really know what it was. I thought it was a Cartoon Network show. I thought it was more of a kid's show that adults could appreciate.
Doesn't Dan Harmon do that show?
Yeah, he was a co-creator on it. I was at a wedding for my cousin last week, and another one of my cousins was at the wedding, and I don't talk to him very often. He lives out of state, but I really take his opinion to heart. Like, he has a lot of good recommendations, and he's actually friends with Kyle Starks, who wrote Sex Castle, which is a comic I talked about previously on the podcast. He's from Evansville, and he's currently writing Rick and Morty for ORN Comics. So him recommending it, and then Kyle Starks being a writer that I appreciate writing the comic for that show, I decided to just dive in. It's on Hulu. And I was very surprised at what the show is, because I don't know how it flew under my radar for so long. It's really, really great stuff. It's basically about a guy named Rick. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to summarize a show like this into to a plot synopsis, but it's basically about a guy named Rick and his grandson Morty, and they go on like interdimensional adventures and outer space adventures. Rick is like a big scientist, and that's the basic synopsis of the show, but I mean, it's so much more than that. The humor on the show is just fantastic. The Rick character especially, he's a drunk and off the rails, and it's just funny how he treats Morty. The humor, though, and I guess the sci-fi aspect of it kind of reminds me of Futurama. The relationships between Rick and Morty and the rest of the family is hilarious. I don't know, man. I would definitely get into it. It's a fun show. I would say my favorite episode out of the 2 seasons that I watched was season 2, episode 4. It's called Total Recall.
Yeah.
It's basically about these space parasites that invade the family's home. And what they do is they get into your brain and they create characters that are actually parasites, but they implant memories, so you don't know that the character is a parasite.
Huh.
It's hard to explain this show because of the far-fetched science that's in it, but it's really hilarious. Just random characters start to pop up, and the family doesn't know if they're parasites or if they're actually part of the family because they've had memories about them, character implanted, and it's just crazy and it's fun. So I think it's something that you'd really dig if you sat down and watched it.
Yeah, I'm actually currently doing a rewatch of Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
So maybe when I get done with that, I'll start with Rick and Morty. It actually kind of, for me, and I've just seen promos for it, and just the way that, it's Rick, right?
Rick's
the older one. Yeah. It reminds me of Back to the Future, just the way he's designed. It kind of looks like a cartoon version of that.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought whenever I watched the first episode. And it turns out that I forget the other creator's name, not Dan Harmon. The other guy had done like a short where it was basically the Back to the Future characters and them having like an abusive relationship, I guess, and that it ended up developing into Rick and Morty. So there is some Back to the Future there for sure.
But I love Futurama. I think that show was completely underrated. So if it has similar humor, I think I would dig it a lot.
Yeah, it just the sci-fi element, I think, more
Sure.
so than the humor, but the humor a little bit as well. So they're getting ready to start season 3, I think, later this year. There's only 21 episodes out there, and they're 22 minutes. So
Oh yeah, that'd go pretty quick.
It's a really easy watch.
All right, cool, man.
All right, man. What are you into?
I am into a video game called Inside, which I don't know if a ton of people know about. It's nothing that I really knew anything about. I actually just saw a review on IGN one day, and it was a really like glowing review. I think they may have given it a 9, maybe even a 10. I don't remember. Like, they loved it. It's a digital exclusive. I don't think you can get a hard copy. I bought it off the Xbox Live Store, but I believe you can also get it off of Steam. I think PlayStation's going to be coming soon, if not already. I know I saw an article the other day that it said it was coming soon, but I didn't actually read the article.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's out already by the time this episode posts. But I've played halfway through the game. I think there's like 12 or 13 stages, and I think I've played through 6. So I'm about halfway through. I'm going to be posting some Let's Plays soon of it. I've already recorded all of the 6 stages that I've played. I'm finally done with TMNT Mutants in Manhattan. I needed to get a good game so I could kind of get the sour taste in my mouth. The last like 4 or 5 videos of me playing TMNT is just me like, this game fucking sucks. Like, I really enjoyed kind of playing as the Turtles. That was a lot of fun. It kind of had that old arcade feel to it, but it was just the same thing over and over and over again. So it was really kind of boring. So if you stuck with all my TMNT videos, I appreciate it, because it was really bad. But so I needed to get a good game to kind of get that sour taste out of my mouth. And I really enjoy this game a lot. It's really simple. They don't really tell you a ton about it. It's basically just this kid who gets dropped into this forest, and he's just kind of trying to make his way through the forest. That's the first level. The environment changes from stage to stage. It's not always a forest, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the X-Files, especially that first stage where they have episodes where Mulder will kind of come across this like secret base, and he kind of has to infiltrate it and sneak around. And that reminded me a lot of one of those types of episodes, because there's these guys chasing him with dogs and stuff and it's very weird, and they don't explain too much, but it doesn't matter. Like, you don't need a ton of like mythology or how or why. It's very much like Zelda, where there's these obstacles and you have to get from point A to point B, but you have to get really creative how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so like you can only jump so high, but this ledge is higher than you can jump. So you have to figure out how to get something over there. And it's really cool. I love like puzzle based games. It actually kind of has a horror element to it too.
Really?
I mean, it's more of a thriller than a horror.
Yeah.
But it definitely has that tone to it that's really cool. I mean, it has a lot of dark grays and blacks, and the score is really kind of ominous and creepy. And if a dog catches you, it's savage, man. He like snaps your neck. It's crazy. And it's like this little kid, and it's really brutal. The first video that I'm going to post here shortly after this episode releases, I actually at one point I'm running through the forest getting chased by one of these guys, and I trip over a log because I just missed that the log was right there, and the guy catches me and he just fucking execution style just blows my head off. I was like, holy shit. But I mean, it's really intense. I kind of hope that there's a little bit more mythology, because it kind of has like a dystopian kind of a Brave New World feel to it as well, because there's factories and subway and stuff like that you have to go in the later stages. So I'm kind of hoping there's a little bit more mythology to it. But if not, it's not going to ruin the game for me, because I like it. Like I said, it's a really fun kind of puzzle based thriller type of game, and I'm really digging it a lot. So if you haven't started playing this game, I would definitely suggest it if you're looking for something else to play right now.
Yeah, man. It seems like for us it would be the Xbox Marketplace, but like these online retailers where you download games are the where to go now to find good stuff to play.
Did you ever play Unravel?
No, I know that you did some let's plays of it though.
Yeah, I enjoyed that game. It's very similar to Inside. The fact that it's kind of like Zelda. It's puzzle based.
Yeah.
You're trying to get over these obstacles. It's just the yarn aspect of that game
Yeah.
was super annoying to me.
Really?
Like you could use your yarn as like to get higher, and it was really annoying, like the whole yarn aspect. So I like that it's a little bit, it doesn't constrain you. Inside doesn't constrain you like Unravel did. So I only played a few stages of that game because I got tired of it, but it's very similar as far as the gameplay is concerned. So if you liked that game, you'll definitely dig Inside a lot.
Awesome, man.
All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I read a few things this week. I was trying to get caught up on my stack, and one that I read that just came out this week is the Daredevil Annual #1. And I've talked about the Daredevil series a few times and have praised it, and it really is a great series. So I was excited to see that it had an annual coming out, but it ended up being pretty disappointing.
Oh, yeah.
So like I said, this Daredevil relaunch that happened last fall has been like great and fun storytelling. I really appreciate what they've done with the character, but this annual, it's basically two separate stories, and they're not fun, and they're chaotic, and you don't get anything out of it for the characters involved. So the first story is about a character named Echo, and I know that she goes back pretty far in the Marvel universe, but I'm not very familiar with her. She's a deaf character, so it kind of plays to the Daredevil mythology.
Sure.
And the villain in this piece, for some reason, is Claw from the Black Panther universe.
Yep.
And for they very briefly explain in this story that he has died, but now he's like a sound monster, and he comes back every so often. And I don't know if that's happened in the past and I just missed it or what, but it was really off. It caught me off guard, and they did not do any explanation with it. But with that being the case, he attacks. So Echo helps Daredevil because she can't be affected by him because she can't hear, and chaos ensues. And then it just abruptly ends, which I thought was weird. That story was pretty bad, but the second story is actually worse in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, and I was excited for the second story because
I had the Gladiator.
Yeah, well, it was the Gladiator, and there was an intro written by the writer, Roger McKenzie, and he's like, I never thought I'd write for Daredevil again. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So I searched who he was, and he wrote like the essential Daredevil run with Frank Miller that everybody talks about being like the best Daredevil run ever. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be amazing. This dude's coming back to Daredevil. And it's basically a story about Gladiator, and nothing of substance really ever happens. It was just really boring to me. And all in all, just really disappointed by this annual for sure. I can't believe they couldn't have creatively put something better out with how good the current run is.
Yeah, I was also very disappointed with it. The first story was boring, confusing, and it just tied up really nicely, like in a really nice bow, and it was, I don't know, it
was weird.
Yeah, it was super, super weird and boring. I did like the little Prince shout out. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was really nothing in this book that was interesting at all. The second one, I'll disagree a little bit. I didn't think it was worse, but it wasn't good. I like the Gladiator stuff because I think he plays a really cool character in the series.
Yeah.
And he's not a character that I'm really, really familiar with. So it was kind of cool to see him in an actual Daredevil story because I never read Daredevil with him in it. I knew of him, but I never see him interact with Daredevil. So that was cool. But there was not a whole lot else with this story. And this annual was super disappointing. But annuals I don't really get too excited for anyways because they're usually one-shots. And sometimes they're not even written by the same writer. I mean, the second story isn't, but the first story was. But it's not the same artist, which was a little bit jarring.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just very, very disappointing.
Yeah, I think... So whenever I had started reading comics again a few years ago, like the first annual I read was Batman Annual, where it digs into Mr. Freeze's backstory, and it was really good. And I think that set the standard too high for me because I think most of the time, like you, I'm more or less disappointed with annuals. So
I remember there was I think it's the most recent Darth Vader annual was actually pretty good.
Was it?
And it paid off I think there's a character in that one. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe it was a Star Wars one, but there was a character that in the most recent issue, if you didn't read that, you were kind of lost on this character. So I appreciated that, but yeah, for the most part, I just don't really. I honestly, if you skip annuals, it doesn't really like hurt you as far as the run's concerned. It feels like Daredevil. I mean, number 9 just came out not too long ago, and then we have the annual, and number 10 comes out next week, I think.
Really?
So it's like Daredevil just on overload. It's crazy, but yeah, I like the series, the ongoing series. I don't think I like it as much as you did or do. It's kind of hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
I think the most recent stuff, I didn't like the Casino Royale poker issue as much as you liked it. I know you talked about it a few episodes ago. I don't like the Battle of the Mind aspect. I don't think that's very interesting at all.
That was a weird part of that book for sure.
Yeah, so I don't think I like the series as much as you do. I think it's still good, but the first couple of issues are so fucking good, and I think it's kind of been hit or miss for me ever since then.
All right, man. So what'd you read this week?
Well, it should come as no surprise. I'm going to talk about Batman number 4. We're going to talk a lot about this book because it just recently, with Rebirth, started as a bi-weekly comic, so it comes every other week, which Flash
sounds
also...
like my sex life.
Hey-o.
Marriage sucks. No, I'm just, that's a joke.
She doesn't listen, man.
No, she doesn't.
But, yeah, The Flash is also bi-weekly as well. I think most of the DC books, major books, are going bi-weekly. So it feels like, especially when I do my new comic book day videos on the YouTube channel, it feels like I'm talking about The Flash and Batman all the fucking time. But I mean, they're both great books. I don't think it's coincidence that this book and Suicide Squad are released on the same week because they kind of have ties to one another. Amanda Waller, who plays a big part in the movie, which we're going to review here a little bit later, plays a part towards the end of this book. For me, it's not a really important part in the comic book. I think it sets stuff up for later issues. I think it will become important. But for me, the best part of this book, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record because I know I've talked about this before. I'm kind of a sucker for vulnerable superhero, those types of stories. Yep. And I really like how this book, since Rebirth, has really emphasized how dark Gotham is. Gotham's always been really dark, but the fact that Batman doesn't have superpowers, but he's almost kind of the perfect superhero for Gotham because he has that resolve.
Yeah.
Gotham and Gotham Girl, who I think is they're really interesting additions to this book, because I know that Batman was, once he found out about them, he was kind of contemplating like, I know I can't do this forever. Maybe this is kind of my ticket to retire, that sort of thing. So I like that idea, but I really enjoyed how they have superpowers, but Batman's more badass than them because he can kind of take the mental aspect of being a superhero a lot better than they can.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't like the addition of Gotham and Gotham Girl.
Really?
Like, I thought that they were super cheesy. Not only they showed up like that, but that their names are Gotham and Gotham Girl.
Yeah.
And this issue expands on who they are, where they came from, why they are who they are, and I appreciate all of that a lot. I really like the intro to this book because it seemed like a rehashing of the Wayne murder, or that might have been issue 3. But
yeah, it was the issue 3 that they concentrate on their backstory.
Yeah, where you think it's the Wayne murder, but it turns out to be kind of like their secret origin. And I like that. So I like that I know more about these characters now. But to me, ever since their introduction, it's been like, all right, so when do they turn bad? When does shit hit the fan with Batman? And it hasn't necessarily just yet, but it's teased. We're very close to that point, at least with one of them. So I'm interested to see where it goes, but I really hope they don't stick around.
Yeah, I mean, you know that they're not gonna stick around.
Well, it's like the Bat family at this point. Like, I don't know. Are you reading Detective Comics?
Nope.
Like, Batwoman is training a bunch of people in that book, including Clayface, which is weird. And then you have Gotham and Gotham Girl and Duke, who's not really a Robin anymore, but he's still at the Batcave helping out. It's like it's becoming like this huge organization, and I prefer what Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo did, and I hate to compare the two, but more focused on Batman and his stories, which is what I appreciate more.
All-Star Batman next week. I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. I already called dibs on it for next week's comic segment.
I honestly, I always look ahead because I have to do the new comic book day videos for the YouTube channel, so I always have to stay current with those books. And I saw that was getting released next week, and I was like, all right. So I almost called dibs for you. I was like, all right, Tyler's going to want to talk about that, so I'm going to pick something else.
Yeah. You actually texted me about talking about Batman 4, and I almost thought about it, especially since Amanda Waller shows up in it. It kind of ties in nicely to our Suicide review, but I wanted to shit on Daredevil a little bit. All right, man, you ready for nerd news?
Yep.
All right, so every week we discuss the nerd news that has come up since the last time we spoke. This week is pretty poor, which is not surprising. It seems to always be bad a few weeks after Comic-Con because everybody busts their load and doesn't have much more to talk about for the next 2 weeks. So I don't have a lot. The first is a video game movie that is being made, The Division, which is crazy because this game is like 2 months old. I know it's a Tom Clancy thing, so I don't know if it was a book or anything beforehand, but they are making a movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal, who you would think would be pretty who would be pretty sour on video game movies after Prince of Persia, and then Jessica Chastain, who I really enjoy as an actress, so that gives me a little bit of hope, but I can't imagine that this is going to be too great. Having played the game and knowing what it's about, I just don't think that it translates to a movie as well.
I don't think that video games translate very well to movies. I mean, I think I've stated that plenty of times on the podcast before. The reason people love video games is because they get to interact with the characters. They control the characters. So that experience doesn't really translate well to movies, but I do think it does have an interesting backstory to it.
I mean, there's something there, but they're going to have to add a lot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that story was pretty weak.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough there, the kind of the bullet points, the kind of the bare bones of that story, that they could make it a movie and be somewhat successful, but hopefully they don't go like first person shooter like that terrible Doom game or movie did. That was really bad.
Yeah, that was. Another video game movie did that recently, didn't they?
I can't remember.
I'm not thinking of Hardcore Henry. I'm thinking of something else. But they had like a first person scene. Oh well, who cares?
Yeah.
Forgettable.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued, but I knew about Jessica Chastain. I knew she had been cast, but I didn't know about Jake Gyllenhaal. That's really surprising because that Prince of Persia movie is really bad.
Yeah, and he's been choosing some other type of work lately, not really like the military stuff. Like he did Demolition, which was out there, and what was it, Enemy that you saw?
Yeah,
Prisoners, like that kind of stuff. So I'm surprised he's going this route.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a weird part.
All right. Next, I've told you this is a bad week, so a lot of the next two stories are more speculation than anything. It's been pretty much rumored that Rachel Taylor is going to join the cast of Defenders. She played, I forget the character's name, but Jessica Jones's adopted sister on Jessica Jones. And the reason her character is a big deal is because she ends up becoming Hellcat in the comics. So the rumor is that she will become Hellcat for the Defenders and kind of join the team a little bit. I think that's pretty cool. Her character, I wouldn't say was like the bright spot of Jessica Jones, but I did enjoy how her character was involved with the first season of that show. And the whole time I wanted her to kind of embrace the superhero that she was kind of training to be. So it would be cool to see that happen in Defenders. I don't know. They might push it back to Jessica Jones season 2, but it's got to happen at some point.
It seems unlikely that they would put her in the first season just because they already have so many things that they have to bring together.
Yeah.
It seems like, well, I mean, she wouldn't necessarily be a new character, but
no.
I don't know. It would be a lot of kind of tying everything together. But I mean, if Daredevil season 2 shows you anything, that they can weave a lot of good storylines in one season together.
For sure. Foggy Nelson is also going to be in season 1 of Defenders. I'm sure he'll just pop up sparsely just talking to Matt, but he will be in there as well.
All right, cool, man.
Last one is, again, speculation. There has been no announcement of any kind surrounding this movie, but everybody wants to keep talking about it, so I thought I'd bring it up. Squirrel Girl.
Yep.
So I guess Anna Kendrick, a month or two ago, was doing an interview and said that her brother had sent her a comic and said that, oh, you'd be perfect for this, and she really liked the comics, so she kind of put her name out there for the character. Then Shannon Purser, who is I forget the character's name on Stranger Things.
11.
No, I didn't think it was 11. I thought that it was the
I could have sworn.
Barb. She's Barb.
I don't think so.
I'll bet money.
Maybe I read the article differently.
It's Barb.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
The actress that plays Barb was kind of campaigning for it on her Twitter, and then Edgar Wright this week was saying something about how Anna Kendrick should play Squirrel Girl. So everybody keeps talking about who should play it.
Because Marvel would take his word for it.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, I'll be like, okay, you got to direct it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of talk about Squirrel Girl. I think we've briefly talked about her in past episodes. It's not a character I'm extremely familiar with. I was going to get into reading her comic and just kind of never did. I appreciate that there's a humor element to it, and I think that'd be kind of an offbeat movie for the Marvel Universe. It would be pretty cool if they'd made it, and maybe low budget, but I can't see that being on their immediate slate of movies to make.
No way, man.
Like,
I'd be really surprised if they made this movie.
It would need to be a one-off. Like, she can't be like, okay, well, she's going to be in Squirrel Girl, and then she's going to be in the next Avengers movie. Like, Squirrel Girl can't be like an Avenger fighting Thanos or anything, but I think that there might be a fun, cheap movie there that they could make as an offshoot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh yeah, I think she's a fun character. I'm not super familiar with her. She pops up with Howard the Duck, which is a comic that I like a lot. So she's kind of a weird character. Obviously, Howard the Duck is also a weird character, so they fit really well together. She's a fun character, but again, I don't think she really is like a great superhero or anything like that. So like you said, I don't think she could really join the Avengers or anything. So I don't know exactly how they would tie it into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you said, I don't know that this is like Kevin Feige's reading these articles saying like, all right, we'll make it.
Yeah.
I think that he has more pressing movies he probably wants to make, but I think I could definitely see Anna Kendrick, especially as that character.
I guess on the flip side, eventually they have to make, I mean, they can't just keep doing Avengers movies.
No.
They have to do stuff that's a little bit different. So, I mean, this is a popular character, I guess. I mean,
they'll get there eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. That is, believe it or not, all I have for nerd news. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really news. I just saw it before I came over here, but Brie Larson tweeted out this, or put it on Instagram, this pretty cool picture of her in like a Captain Marvel onesie type thing, reading a Captain Marvel comic book. So, I mean, that made my dick twitch a little bit. Just because I love that character and I'm excited for her to play it. But
I just assumed it because it was a comic book.
Or the comic book. Yeah. But that's not really news. It's just kind of something cool I saw. And it takes up like
they haven't even started.
No, that's
forever
probably
away.
like a year off at least.
They haven't even written it, have they?
I think they have a director. I'm pretty sure they have a director, but no, I don't think they've announced who's writing it or anything.
All right,
man. Let's move on.
All right, so the next segment is just kind of our main topic. It changes from episode to episode. Like we've mentioned before earlier in the episode, we are going to be reviewing Suicide Squad, which was released on August 5th, so a few days ago at the time of this recording. It was written and directed by David Ayer, who is the director of End of Watch and Fury. Not sure if he wrote either one of those books or movies.
I thought he wrote both for sure, and I know he
wrote Training Day.
He wrote Training Day,
and if I'm not mistaken, also Fast and Furious, which I wasn't gonna bring up.
I didn't know that.
I'm almost positive that he wrote Fast and Furious. You can look it up as I'm talking.
You just enlightened me, but yeah, I'll double check that.
Yeah, so he directed Suicide Squad as well, which I was not aware of this until earlier this morning. There was also a cameo directed by Zack Snyder in this movie as well.
I saw that.
Yeah, so that's a little weird. I mean, it makes sense because they're filming Justice League right now, so it kind of worked out that way. But
for what it's worth, he did write the screenplay for the Fast and Furious, but he also wrote End of Watch and Fury as well.
All right, cool. So just a quick synopsis of Suicide Squad. Frightened by the threat of metahumans, a fierce Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, convinces the government to put together a task force of the most dangerous villains. So, as always, we're going to start off this review by kind of just giving our general overview of what we thought of Suicide Squad. We call it broad strokes. So, what do you think of Suicide Squad?
It was kind of tough for me to put notes together, to be honest. I don't know why, but last week we reviewed The Killing Joke, and it was the most notes I've ever taken for any movie we've ever reviewed because I had such strong feelings about it. And as I was trying to sit here and take notes for Suicide Squad after we watched it on Thursday night, I'm so indifferent to it. It definitely wasn't the movie I was hoping for. I mean, it was cool seeing the DC universe get bigger with these characters, but I expected this movie. I don't know if I expected it. I hoped that it would kind of take things to the next level. Like it's a cool concept that nobody's really done yet with like the Task Force X, with the villains that are forced kind of to do good. They could have definitely taken things to the next level for the DC universe and for these characters and just built. I mean, you have a Flash villain, you have Batman villains. Like this movie could have catapulted the universe into feeling bigger than Batman v Superman made it feel. And in the end, it was just kind of run of the mill stuff. Like nothing too exciting. It was just kind of a summer movie, and I was really hoping for it to be more.
For sure. I'd like to start off by saying that obviously I've been pretty critical of the DC cinematic universe. I was not a fan of Man of Steel, and of course I was not a fan of Batman v Superman. When they announced this film, I was kind of critical of it, thinking that there's no way that they could pull all of this stuff together. Comic book fans, of course, know of Suicide Squad, but I think the general audience doesn't. So I thought it was going to be hard for them to kind of pull all these characters together. But the closer we got to the release date, the more hopeful I was. Of course, it's one of my Rotten Tomatoes films, so I was rooting for it just because of that. And I mean, I'm done. Let's be honest, because I always kind of held out hope because I hadn't had a movie do as bad as Batman v Superman. Now I do. Last time I checked, it was at 30%, which I think Batman v Superman ended up at being 29%.
Yeah, there was I haven't checked like on Rotten Tomatoes or anything today, but there was an article on comicbook.com yesterday that said Suicide Squad is now worse than Batman v Superman on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? Did you see the petition?
Yeah, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, I don't necessarily agree with all the negativity this movie or Batman v Superman got, but come on. Like, it's not fucking Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a bunch of people have reviewed this movie and given it poor reviews. Like, you can't petition that.
I thought it was actually funny because I read an article about it, and I guess a lot of people signed the petition because in order for you to comment on the petition, you have to sign it first. Oh, okay. And so they signed it just to troll the guy that came up with it. So I was pretty happy about that.
That makes me feel a little bit better about humanity.
Yeah. So that's dumb. Obviously, I was rooting for this movie because of that, but I mean, I'm done. Unfortunately, all my fears, most notably, the big one was they were going to have a hard time pulling all these characters together, were realized with this movie. They had all the right pieces. I just didn't think that they put them together right. It was casted well. It had some good character development, not a ton, but some of it was. I thought that the soundtrack was really cool. The story was just so fucking weak.
Yes.
And I mean, that's kind of my segue into just our next part of the review, which is always we talk about the story. So if you just want to go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I love the story of Task Force X in the comics. Like, it's such a unique thing that is almost exclusive to DC. Like, they ended up grouping all their big villains together and they put together this thing. And it's just this brilliant idea to me. And it goes back fairly far, and it's been successful in the comics. And the first half of this movie gave me hope because as they kind of put the characters together and give you the backstory and do the flashbacks, like I'm like, this is fun. This is cool. This is really neat seeing this stuff, especially this stuff with Harley Quinn and the Joker, being the big Batman fan that I am. But as soon as you get out of Belle Reve prison and they go on their fucking mission, and
how disappointed was it that it wasn't Blackgate? I was disappointed that it wasn't Blackgate.
I mean, Belle Reve is notable in the DC universe too, but it's like they want to kind of dangle stuff, but they don't want to give it to us yet.
Yeah,
like I don't like the Robin suit in Batman v Superman. Like, like it's a cool scene, but we have no backstory about what the fuck happened. We can all assume from what we know from the comics, but they want to dangle that stuff, and I don't really get that. And this movie does it as well. My biggest issue with this movie is definitely once they get on their mission, I think that them going through a city, in this case it's Midway City, was dumb. They should have had it
Really?
more,
I kind of like that.
I think that it should have been more contained. Like, I'm going to probably bring up Assault on Arkham a few times. I don't know if you ever watched it. It was an animated movie that came out a couple years ago, but
No.
it's basically the Suicide Squad going into Arkham to stop Joker. And I think that having the team like that in more of a contained area worked a little bit better, and you were able to develop the characters a little bit better than it does with them going through another city in this DC universe that's on the edge of extinction. And
Yeah.
you had to, kind of similar to Batman v Superman, you had to evacuate. And it's just too much for this group. Like, they should have been more contained. And then when you get to the villain of this movie, and I don't know if we're going to say who the villain is because it's not really been confirmed in trailers or anything yet, but the villain is so incredibly weak.
Absolutely.
Which was disappointing because it was the character I was excited for this movie. I don't know. That's where I think that this is definitely a tale of two halves, and not really even halves. I would say I enjoyed 1/3 of it immensely, and the last 2/3 of it were ho-hum.
We're going to agree a lot about this movie, as we do a lot, actually, surprisingly enough.
I mean, I had this in my notes and I skipped over it. This movie isn't bad, but this movie isn't what I hoped for. It didn't do what it was capable of doing. I think that
for sure.
There was a story that came out a couple days ago about David Ayer in the studio maybe having competing cuts of this movie, and maybe that's why it went the way it did. But from what I understand, David Ayer wanted to make this movie darker, and Warner Brothers wanted to make it lighter after the Batman v Superman stuff. And I honestly like the lighter stuff better, like the stuff at the beginning.
I thoroughly enjoyed that
So
aspect of it.
Maybe they made the right call there because they saved at least part of this movie for me, if all of that is true.
Yeah, I mean, I love the levity in this film, especially with all of the other DC Cinematic Universe movies, Man of Steel, and most notably Batman v Superman, just kind of hits you over the head with how depressing it is. Yeah. I kind of liked that it was a little bit of a change of pace. I really liked the quick intros. I mean, of course, they concentrated more on Deadshot and Harley Quinn, which was fine with me because I'm a big Batman fan, as you are. So I liked that they concentrated on the two villains that I was most excited for going in. But even though that they did spend a good chunk of the movie, at least 1/3 kind of getting to where they were going as far as introducing the characters, there's so many characters in this movie that it still felt really rushed. And then there's a particular character, and obviously I won't give it away, but he's really not introduced at all. And then he is dispatched very, very quickly.
I kind of put two and two together as soon as we saw him with the group. I'm like, oh, that's why they didn't explain who he is.
Yeah. So, I mean,
that's going to happen soon.
That didn't really surprise me. And I'm going to say this, and I know I might sound pretentious when I go on this little bit of a rant, but I have to say it. So I'm not a feminist. I mean, not because I don't believe that females.
You're digging yourself a grave here.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to kind of tiptoe around this, but I don't consider myself a feminist just because I don't follow the movement or anything like that. But
you saved it.
I really, really hate the cliche in TV and movies of like the weak female that has to be saved by the males.
Yeah.
And that really, really bothers me. And when you boil it down, that's what this movie was a group. I mean, it's not all of males, but the two basically leaders of the Suicide Squad are males. And one of the driving forces of this movie is a male who's trying to save this female. Basically, when you boil down the plot, that's what it is. And it really bothers me because they had a really strong female character in Harley Quinn, even though, I mean, is she perfect? Absolutely not. She's a villain, so she's crazy. But I thought she did a phenomenal job in this movie. It really bothered me that was such a cliche concept, and the plot was just really bad.
I mean, just to play the devil's advocate, in all fairness, probably the strongest character in this movie is female.
Yeah?
Amanda Waller.
For sure, but I
get what you're saying with like
the whole plot is just really cliche of them having to save this woman, and it bothers me when I mentioned this several times in my X-Files reviews that the episodes that bothered me the most were the ones where Scully had to be saved, and the ones that I enjoyed the most were the ones that Mulder had to be saved by Scully. Yeah. I just don't like that cliche of a weak female character having to be saved by the males. And it was further complicated by the fact that that relationship wasn't very well developed either. It's just that they kind of mention it early in the beginning. They have a scene towards the middle, and then you're just supposed to buy that love story. And I just didn't, because there was just way too many characters for them to develop, and they took more time developing the Deadshot stuff, which paid off at the end. But I just think that if you're going to make that relationship a driving force in the movie, you have to make me believe that they actually care for each other, and I just didn't believe that. And I just, like I said, I just don't like that cliche of the man saving the weak female. And of course I'm using weak as in quotations, even though I didn't do the quotes because you can't see me anyways. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's really cliche. And the villain, as you said, is a fairly, I wouldn't say big character in the DC universe, but she's fairly well
Notable.
known. Yeah. So we're obviously not going to spoil it. Like you said, it's not really mentioned in any of the promotional materials, so I won't spoil that at all. Her brother in this movie, that particular character, was really fucking stupid. Really stupid.
I don't know who signed off on using that character, what the character looks like in this movie, like anything with that. I just don't know who says, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was not well developed. The creature design, like you said, was really silly. Wasn't even an actor that I knew. Like, it wasn't a familiar face. He does play a pretty decent role in this movie, and they got other notable actors.
Yeah.
I mean, they got the guy that's dispatched fairly quickly is a fairly notable. I mean, he's much more notable than the guy that they had play another pretty big character in the movie.
Yeah.
It was really weird. I don't know. I actually thought to myself when they introduced that guy as her brother, I was like, well, this character's not going anywhere because I don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
And then he was in the entire movie.
Yeah.
The rest of the length of the movie. So one major thing that I had a problem, one last thing really, is that I hated the Joker played second fiddle to a really weak villain. He's basically not in the third act at all.
Yeah.
And I know that Jared Leto has come out and said that he wasn't crazy about that he just kind of disappears in the third act of the movie.
He said they cut out stuff, and I'm not sure.
I've heard different things. Like
Yeah.
I heard they did a lot of experimenting with the character, so they filmed a lot of stuff that obviously they kind of knew wasn't going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, the character just completely disappears. I mean, you could not like his interpretation of that character, and that's fine. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but I don't like the fact that he's just gone. And in the promotional material, and that's why I don't put a ton of stock into trailers, they kind of build him as the villain. And he's in the third act. He's not at all in this movie.
Yeah, there was definitely trailer trash. There was stuff that, unfortunately, that they showed in the trailer that I really liked with that character, that some nuances and some lines that aren't in the movie. And I was disappointed with that, for sure. I agree.
All right. I mean, that's pretty much all I have for story. So why don't we just go ahead and move on to performances?
Yeah, so I think that we'll probably end up disagreeing here at some point with the performances, because I surprisingly don't have many complaints with the performances. I think the performances were more of the highlight for the movie for me. I went into this movie thinking that I would dig Margot Robbie and I would dig Jared Leto. I've never seen a movie with Jai Courtney that I've liked his performance
I liked
in.
that he got to do his own accent.
Yeah, I thought that he was good as Captain Boomerang. I thought that it's a silly character, and I've never seen him play anything but like the grizzled, Bruce Willis's son, like action hero that he doesn't really fit the mold for. So I thought it was cool that he got to do his accent and be crazy, and it was something I haven't seen him do before, and I have no complaints with him. Will Smith was Will Smith, but I would say it's probably one of the better performances he's done in the last few years.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. You brought this up a while back, probably a year ago when we first started talking about this movie as far as Nerd News was concerned. And you had mentioned that you thought he was just in for the paycheck because Deadshot does wear that mask. And obviously when he has the mask on, he could have the stunt double, his body double be in it. And he was just kind of in for the paycheck. I thought it was a good thought on your part to bring up. during that episode, I was really surprised. I mean, he barely wears the mask at all.
Like
in this
20
movie.
seconds of mask time, probably.
Yeah, which I liked. I mean, if you're going to
Yeah.
get an actor like that,
Yeah.
it shows that he really cared, that he wasn't just going in for the paycheck. So I appreciated that.
For sure. I think the standout in this movie for sure is Viola Davis. I thought,
Oh, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
She was like, it was Amanda Waller from the comics on the screen.
Absolutely.
Like,
I thought
beat for beat.
like I said in broad strokes, I think they cast this movie perfectly.
Yeah. Like I don't, I mean, we'll get to it whenever we kind of sum things up, but just this cast alone makes me want to see a sequel.
Oh
Like,
yeah, for sure.
wanna
I
see
think the pieces are there.
I want to see them take another stab at this because there were parts of this movie I really liked mostly with the performances. And it seems like this group of actors really got along well on set and kind of became this Suicide Squad family. And I'd like to see them give it another go and do it better, to be honest.
I'm guessing you've never seen How to Get Away with Murder.
No, I haven't.
I watched the first season. Unfortunately, it's not good. I would not suggest it. But she plays a very similar character. And
Who, Viola Davis?
Yes, she's
Okay.
really, really good in that show. I don't like the show. It's soap opera-y. It's
Really?
It's garbage. Don't watch it. But she's really great in it. She plays a very similar character, so I like that. She's a little bit more vulnerable in How to Get Away with Murder. She's not that tough character that
Yeah.
she is, but you see a lot more vulnerable side of her in that particular show. But again, not a good show. Don't watch it. But yeah, I mean, I thought she was awesome in this. I disagree that she was a standout. I thought she was awesome, but I thought Margot Robbie was just fucking amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's Harley Quinn. For me,
Yeah,
I mean,
did.
that's Harley from Arkham.
If anything, I was nervous or I was disappointed with the trailers because in the trailers it makes it sound like she's not doing much of an accent.
Yeah.
She's just doing an American accent, whereas in like Wolf of Wall Street, she does like that heavy Brooklyn accent. But I was really surprised and happy that there is kind of a twang in her voice that
For sure.
is very much Harley. Like they found a good balance to where it wasn't going to be annoying to watch a whole movie
Yeah.
of her doing that.
And this is not really about the performances per se, but I love the little Alex Ross shout out, the Joker and Harley Quinn when they
Oh,
were
yeah,
dancing.
that was
that was pretty cool. I thought that was a nice shout out.
Yeah, my dick twitched with that happening as well.
Well, my dick twitched every time she was on screen.
No joke.
Anyways, so I think we kind of glossed over the elephant in the room.
So I purposely saved this for last because
Okay.
yeah.
So Jared Leto as Joker. I want to hear your thoughts first.
So, I mean, no, I don't know that anybody's ever going to do it better than Heath Ledger. Nobody's ever going
Absolutely
to do
not.
it better than Mark Hamill. I think that they made a decision with this movie to make it the Joker, but differentiate it from the last Joker we saw. And I personally I could have done without some of the nuances of the character. Like he seems more. So they went like an organized crime route. Like he's
Yeah.
a mob boss. And I can
Yep.
kind of appreciate that. It's not the Joker I love where he's just batshit crazy and off the wall. And they made him more of like a respected figure in Gotham. And I can respect that they made that decision. I personally thought Jared Leto's performance was great.
Yes.
As that character.
Yes, and I 100% agree with you. I think a lot of people are going to have problems with it, but my problems weren't with his performance. My problems were the choices that they made with the character. Like you said, I don't necessarily think of Joker that way. I think he's just too crazy to be an organized crime boss. Like,
Yeah.
I think you're just, when you're off the hinges, I don't think that functions very well. It's organized crime. You
Yeah.
have to be organized. And so I just don't think that character necessarily works in that environment. But like you said, and I think it's a really good point, that's a choice that they made within the constructs of that movie. And I think that he did really great with that character.
I think the flashbacks are more the Joker that we wanted.
Absolutely.
Like him, what his interactions with in Arkham and in Ace Chemicals and that kind of stuff is more the stuff that we're used to. And then the present day stuff is the stuff that is taken a little bit of adapting to.
Yeah, and in all honesty, though, I mean, when you've seen this character so much, and I brought this up a little bit with Spider-Man with the costume and everybody making a big deal out of the costumes, you have to distinguish yourself
Yep.
from the past Jokers. You can't just be the same thing. You can't just be trying to be Jared Leto doing Heath Ledger as the Joker. You have to
Yep.
be Jared Leto doing the Joker. And so it obviously was going to be different. For me, like you said, Nobody's ever going to do it better than he did it. I mean, that's my Joker. That's who I think of. That's Mark Hamill. I'll put in that category as well, just from the Arkham games. I mean, that's just fantastic. That's who my Joker is. I'm fine with if somebody kind of latches on to this version of the Joker, even though it's not quite as unhinged as I would like. And again, I don't think that character functions well as an organized crime boss. But if that's the route that you want to go, I think it works within this movie. The only part I was disappointed in was the fact that he wasn't in it more.
That's what I was going to say is say what you will, but I mean, like you mentioned earlier, it left me wanting more. It left me wanting a lot more of this character. I really hope that we can see a Batman movie with him squaring off against the Batman we have now. I think that that's an interesting movie we haven't seen yet. Like,
for sure.
Like you've done 2 Batman movies where Batman faces the Joker. I think that this sets up for another one of those movies, but a different take on it that could be good.
The only problem I have is you see the Batman suit in Batman v Superman. I don't think...
The Robin suit?
Yes, the Robin suit, sorry. I don't think that Joker fits that story.
Yeah, it's almost... That's the thing with jumping into a universe that's so far along. So obviously this is the beginning of the Superman story in this universe with Man of Steel just happening a few years ago. But when you jump into the Batman universe where everything's already happened, it's kind of hard to put all the pieces together.
Yeah,
like everything we know about Batman, we want to fill in the gaps of these movies with what we know from the comics, and it doesn't work as well until they actually tell us this is what happened and this is why and this is how it was realized.
Yeah, so, you see when you see that suit in that movie, you see the comics, what happened in the comics. That's what your brain jumps to. I don't think that Joker does what he does in the comics.
Harley Quinn is almost more unhinged than the Joker is.
For sure.
And I didn't realize this. I read an article, and I think I'm going to see this movie again, possibly tomorrow night. Whenever they're going through the characters and they have like the little blips come up on screen, like who they are and what they do. And I missed it, but something is said on her screen about killing Robin.
Oh, really?
Being involved with killing Robin. And I don't want to like cement that as fact until I actually see it for myself. But that was an article on comicbook.com, and she has some role in killing Robin as well.
Okay, cool.
So I could maybe see it more so if she's involved with it too, just because she's a little bit crazier than he is in this case.
All right, so the last little segment of this review, we're going to briefly touch on the action.
Yeah, surprisingly, there's not a ton of action to talk about, to be honest. You would think a movie like this would be chock full of action, but the action pieces feel kind of small. Yeah,
I mean, they're definitely contained a little bit. I thought it was fun. I liked seeing all of these characters fight alongside one another. They all have different styles, and I thought that was kind of cool. Captain Boomerang doesn't seem like he would function very well within this team. He doesn't seem like he is useful as a soldier within this team. But other than that, I thought it was really fun. I did think that David Ayer fell in love with the slow scene towards the end. That was weird.
Yeah,
I did not like that. That was a little bit, I mean, just kind of jarring a little bit. I mean, he just really fell in love with that in the last 10 minutes of this movie to kind of go in the little slow action type of thing and kind of draw it out a little bit more. So that was kind of my only complaint about the action. Maybe have a little bit more, but with all of the introductions of the characters, it's kind of hard to have a ton of action.
I mean, I was more excited for going into this movie to the backstory of the characters. I wasn't really looking forward to, I wonder who the antagonist is, and I wonder how the Suicide Squad's going to take him down. I was more interested in seeing the backstories, and honestly, I'll be 100% honest with you, how Batman fit into this universe and how he put Harley away or Deadshot away or so on and so forth. So I wasn't as much looking forward to the action anyways.
Cool. So star rating.
I'm going to go with a 3 out of, I was actually going to do 3.5, but I kind of talked myself out of it through our review. So I'm going to go 3.
Okay. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm sure I have, but I struggle with the star reviews or the star ratings because we've kind of established that 3 means we recommend this movie. I don't know if I necessarily recommend it. I think it's fun. It has the pieces. I will definitely see a sequel if and when they make one. So I kind of struggled between 2.5 and 3. I'm going to ultimately say 3 because like I said, it has all the pieces for a good movie. I just don't know if they necessarily put it together right.
I don't want to sound like, the comic nerd that's like, well, I read the comics, so I know more than you or anything. But for me, like, this is a movie I would recommend to somebody who hasn't read the comics. Like, the Suicide Squad is this cool thing. Check out this movie. It has Batman, Joker in it, but it's really about these other great DC villains. So I could see myself recommending it to somebody, even though I know that there's a better version of it in the pages. So I don't want to make myself sound like I'm a snobby comic book reader or anything, and I know better because I read the book, because I hate those people. But in this case, I would recommend this to somebody who hasn't read the comics and is just interested in superhero movies.
For sure. All right. So the last little segment that we do at end of each episode is just plainly called Nerd Favorite. Tyler and I take turns asking a really nerdy question, what your favorite blank is. We take turns picking the topic. It is my turn this week, and the Summer Olympics just started the other day. The opening ceremonies were last night, and of course the games themselves actually started this morning. I've been watching them pretty much all day. If I wasn't at the reunion, I was watching the Summer Olympics. Tyler and I don't really talk about it a ton on the podcast because obviously this is a nerd culture podcast, and sports doesn't always mix very well with nerd culture, so we don't talk about it very often. But we are like big sports fans. I love the Olympics, more the Winter Olympics than the summer, and I know I'm in the minority there, but I love the Winter Olympics. So I thought it would be interesting. I think we had this discussion with the Winter Olympics a couple of years ago, but I wanted to ask what your favorite Summer Olympic event is. Of course, the person that poses the topic always goes first, so I am going to call dibs on beach volleyball. I actually...
Male or female? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter because I like the sport, but
I just want to watch you dance around this.
I do find it... And this is going to sound homophobic, and I know, and I apologize for that. I don't mean for it to sound like that. I just feel awkward watching guys play beach volleyball. I don't know why, but I shouldn't, but I do. Anyways, growing up, volleyball always kind of was branded as a girl sport. My school didn't even have it in high school. It wouldn't have mattered. I played football. It was the same season, so it wouldn't have mattered. But my ex-girlfriend at the time in high school played volleyball, so I was kind of around the sport. The spandex shorts didn't hurt either. So I kind of started to like it back then. And then one of my college roommates was really into volleyball, and so we started playing on intramurals. In the fall, obviously we'd play gym volleyball, and then in the spring and summer we'd play beach volleyball, and I just kind of fell in love with it. It's really fun. I'm actually surprisingly good at it. I mean, I'm not good at it, but for somebody that never really played volleyball and just kind of picked it up one day, I'm actually surprisingly good at it. And I really enjoyed, it's been a couple of Olympics ago, really enjoyed watching Misty May and Carrie Walsh kind of do their thing. They were so good for so long, and I kind of have a crush on Misty May. She's fucking amazing, man. But yeah, so my favorite Summer Olympic event is beach volleyball. I actually was just watching, it wasn't beach volleyball, I was just actually watching USA beat Puerto Rico before Tyler came over to record. So I really enjoy the sport. I kind of wish it was on TV a little bit more, but yeah, it's my favorite Summer Olympic event.
I'm not super into the Olympics. I don't know that this qualifies as a nerdy question if we're being honest. But that being said, if I was being honest, it would probably be beach volleyball, and not only for perverted reasons, but I have the same kind of feeling about it as you do. That was a sport that I was always bad at sports, but I could always hold my own in volleyball. So that was always fun for me. And so it is cool to watch it, but going the other route, I mean, I do watch the gymnastics if it's on. Yeah. I don't really understand the scoring. So I'm
male or female.
Either. Honestly, either. Like like I said, I don't understand the scoring. I'm not well versed in that at all. I'll also watch swimming if it's on, but I don't know. I don't seek out the Olympics like most people tend to do. Maybe it's just because work's always been in the way. It's a busy time of year for retail. I don't know. I would have to go beach volleyball. If not beach volleyball, then gymnastics or swimming for sure.
Cool, man. I was surprised you didn't go with like basketball or like the more obvious ones.
I almost said basketball just because it's kind of funny watching a sport that
We
the
just
U.S.
fucking
just
murder.
dominates in. But I don't know. Basketball is good too. Like Bobby Knight coached it at one point, and I'm
Yeah.
a huge Bobby Knight fan, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, like you said, it was pretty obvious. So
Yeah, it's funny because we're recording this. It's like what 5:52 Central Time right now, and our team USA basketball team is playing China right now. Over under that they're already winning by like 30 points. I think we played them in exposition. What is it?
exhibition.
Yes, I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. We played them just recently and we beat them by like 50 points.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Man.
All right, man. So that is episode 106. I said it earlier and
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I just completely blanked on it. Of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. They are both at the Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google Plus. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel where I'll be posting my Let's Plays of the new game Inside that I talked about with What I'm Into. Check out our Twitch channel. Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. Rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, any podcatcher you use, we're on it. That really helps us out a lot. We really appreciate it. Email us, basically anything, episode suggestions, comments, anything at the nerds you're looking for at gmail.com. You can also check out my stand-up. I have a lot of shows actually coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be doing the Gin and Comic open mic August 9th at the Boca Lounge here in Evansville.
I just put together the play on words of that.
You're a dummy.
Like we were literally talking about it earlier, and I'm like, that's such a weird name, and then I just put it together. That's,
Yeah.
wow.
Gin
Okay.
and tonic.
Yeah, no, I got it now.
Wow, you're dumb. Anyways, I will
No,
also...
they're dumb for that fucking dumb name.
Anyways, I really like the Boca Lounge, so you better watch your mouth.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to ruin anything for you. Man.
I will also be doing the open mic at Bear's Place in Bloomington, August 15th. I really like that room a lot. So if you're in the Bloomington area, definitely check it out. I will also be doing the 7, 8, 9 comedy show at the Bardstown in Louisville on August 19th. And I will be opening at Shorty on Green River Road. Apparently, I've been calling it Shorties, and that is not
you have.
correct. That is August 22nd. So I apologize for that. Apparently, I've been pronouncing it wrong this entire time. So check out all of that stuff that I just listed. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys later.
I momentarily forgot how we ended the show.